Welcome to the first episode of Curiously George. We are really excited. I'm really excited to be here today. And before we get into it with our first very special guest, I just want to talk really quick about why we're doing this. There's a lot of information out there right now. I think we all know that the world is in an extraordinary moment, for lack of a better term. And when you go looking for what to do, how to feel, there just feels like a mad dash for clicks. There's a lot of people out there putting out blogs and podcasts and emails that are just kind of telling people what to do. You must do this. You should do this. Or the ever popular top 10 things you should do to feel this way. Or 3 things you should do right now to lose weight, or 5 different things to change the trajectory of your life. And there's all these, there's just all these people telling people what to do. And what we're trying to do here on this podcast is focus on the art of storytelling. There are so many great leaders out there. And one of the things that makes them so great is that they know how to tell great stories. You know, we all know that if we read, we can learn so much from books, but it's also not about listening. It's also not about people telling you what to do. It's really more about listening to what others have done. And you can really learn a lot from that. I know that from my 30 years of experience, and our guest today certainly knows that. And, nobody's going to tell you what to do on this podcast. What you're going to do is hopefully listen, and you'll decide what you want to take and what you don't want to take, and be able to, go ahead and improve your professional or personal life. So no guarantees on that, but that's the important thing. We're not going to tell you what to do. So I'm joined today by a friend of mine of over 40 years, Todd Youngman. He is a very popular comedian. Say hello, Todd.
Hey, George. How are you? Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Great to have you on here.
Yeah.
And we also have our producer, Scott Fitzgerald from RockVox. Scott, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm humbled. Thank you for including me.
You're always included.
Of course.
Well, I am honored. Thank you so much.
This is the team. It's part of being a leader and having a team. You introduce the team. So for our first episode today, as many of you probably saw from the promo, we have the international housewife, the star of RuPaul Season 7 Drag Race, Mrs. Kasha Davis. And we're very excited to have her here. And we're very humbled that she chose to do our very first episode because I know how that can be. Firsts can be difficult.
I was very honored to have been asked. I do appreciate it. It's always good to, get yourself gussied up from the waist up and get out and about when there's nothing else to do but vote.
And you look great.
Wow, thank you. And now put on your glasses.
Yeah.
So before we get into the story, Kasha, one thing when we were talking before we started this is you mentioned that this was this type of discussion is something that's needed right now. Do you think could you dive into that a little bit more?
Well, I do. I think, first of all, I always gravitate towards leadership and motivational and self-help books. I was recently organizing these books in my house, and I was like, wow, I have to go to TJ Maxx to get another bookshelf because I have so many things to try to fix myself. And it's wonderful stuff because you're working on yourself to, hopefully help others. And unfortunately, we are living through a lot of dramatic things. And I think a lot of that has to do with the amount of technology that we have and the information that's going out. And it's tough to sift through those things. Mm-hmm. And it seems, Todd has actually been bringing this up to me a lot, but it seems like a lot of people are gravitating towards podcasts because while you work, you can listen. And as you mentioned in your introduction, you can take bits and pieces and find ways to implement those ideas into your own life. And I think it's so important right now because we're getting information overload on this same topic in just little bits and different ways.
Yeah.
For the obvious stuff, COVID, the election, et cetera.
Right, exactly. And it just feels like there's just that, people are trying to tell other people what to do instead of, I don't know, I just feel that, and maybe it's a little kumbaya, but I just feel that telling a great story can allow people to, because the same book resonates differently with different people.
Yes. And I am very open about my sobriety journey and recovery journey. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that is done in, the Fellowship of AA is that you're telling your story, and you may not have the same walk of life. You may have had completely different experiences. But the reality is that when someone tells their story, it's you can see a reflection of yourself in different ways and take from that, inspiration to build a better you. And then that's what I love about storytelling.
Agreed. Scout, I thought we lost it there for a minute. Agreed. So, talking about building, why don't we start, one of the previous discussions we've had, let's talk about kind of your journey. We could actually start with, I guess we don't have to start at the very beginning, but say it was middle school or high school. What were some significant moments for you on your journey? Because I think we can all agree that back then we were kind of on a linear path, right?
Right.
We've got our parents. We're going to, go to school. Maybe we'll go to college. Then we'll get married. Then we'll have kids. Then we'll work for like IBM or Kodak, and off we go.
Well, that's my story. Thanks so much. No, No, it's I joke about it, and I'm very serious about the scenario that you just really kind of went through. That whole linear path is that when I was a little boy, girl, gal, girl, boy, fella in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Oh boy,
there was only one path, and that was straight to the closet and lock the door. There was not a real reflection, as mentioned just previously, of anybody like me in that I could see. And if I did see somebody who was like me, they were considered light in the loafers, a fabulous fella. And that's why I say little boy, girl, gal, girl, boy, fella, because I knew I was all of it. I knew that I was a boy, just by looking down at my pants. And I knew that I was very much can relate to being a girl, but I knew that I was fabulous. I knew that I gravitated towards jewelry. And actually, on the way over here, I was like looking at my hand. I was like, "Wow, your mother used to wear big, diamond rings, but you sure decided to wear one that's bigger." And it's sort of it has been such a celebration. I'm 49 years old. I'll turn 50 in March, and I'm realizing more and more now that I'm completely me, whatever that is. And so when I think back, I was doing exactly what other people wanted. I was suppressing who I was and what I desired, and that could have been as simple as something flashy like a diamond ring, but more serious like my sexuality, and even in some ways the path on my gender. Mm-hmm. And so I did just that. I went and I married the first person who would say yes. I think I asked every single girl in school if they would date me, and they would say no. And you pass the notes, and we'll just be friends. And I was like, oh, why is everybody saying that? It was because I asked every single girl possible. And eventually, I did meet someone who the first person that I came out to, she's like, you know what? It doesn't matter what you are. I love you, and you just need to be yourself. And our mothers kind of fixed us up, and we would pretend to make out in the car and stuff, and just talk about like real life stuff that we were going through, And unfortunately, in my junior year of high school, she was right around that time. She was killed in a car accident.
Oh,
and so that sort of person that I was able to be honest with was gone. And I thought in some ways that was like fate, that I was not. I better not talk about myself and who I am to anybody else. Oh, not that I caused that, but it was like, oof, I was afraid to open up to anybody else. And then when I met my former ex-wife, she was another person who I was able to be my truest self with. And in some ways, was she accepting that I was bisexual? Maybe. She was just sort of, you're very European, we'll just deal with it. Yeah. And I was like, I knew that in some way was a compliment, because she was desiring to go to other countries and to study abroad and all that. And I wanted to be abroad, but I had to say it. No, I don't even know, I don't even know why she was so accepting. It's just that we loved each other. And so, of course we would get married. And in that that path led to a lot of turmoil for both of us.
Yeah.
Sure.
And of course we divorced. And
But in the beginning, there were probably just certain needs that were being fulfilled or needs that were being met at the time. Now, I wouldn't say fulfilled,
Yes.
maybe met, because if they were
Absolutely.
fulfilled, it might have been different, but they were met at the time.
they were met at the time. It was good while it was good.
Right.
You know, and we did have a lot of really wonderful times. And then we began to grow and realize, I mean, we were married at 20 and 21 years old.
Yeah, that's
So
young.
we were children.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And my parents were excited because, yay, it's a girl.
Yeah.
I mean, now, let me ask you this. I know you admired your mother. Your mother was your
Yes.
idol. You adored her. What was your relationship like with your dad?
It wasn't good.
Yeah.
It was never good. The long and short of that, it wasn't good until my mom passed away. And he started to realize that life was more than what he could control, you know. I never felt accepted by him. I never felt, although he said, you know, in the end, I was always proud of you or whatever. I never felt that. I always felt I was a disappointment. And that just came from the idea that I believe at that time in the 70s and 80s, in terms of this is my son, he needs to act a certain way. Now I know he was trying to protect me and he was only doing his best. But it was very difficult. We had a lot of verbal and physical fights.
No. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
And so, and part of that, I mean, my side of the street is I had a big mouth. I was like, you know, if he started, I did what I could with, you know, insults, and I'm sure that wasn't easy to swallow.
That surprises me about
Yeah, exactly, right? My mother nicknamed me Snake Mouth, and she used to say, Eddie, you're Snake Mouth. She goes, you know, you try to defend yourself with your words, and it's going to get you in trouble. And she was absolutely right.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that's definitely an obstacle. But so we didn't get along until late in life, and I think it was because he started to see that I was just balls to the wall, going to be myself. I had been married for quite a while, and Mom passed away, and he started to look at life differently. And then when he started to get sick, I think between those life changes, and then my sobriety, being able to look at my side of the relationship, we had a couple good months of really great relationship.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did it seem sincere when you
Absolutely.
said it did? It was from the heart.
Oh, it was absolutely from the heart. I mean, I tell the story that he had never seen me do. At least I know I didn't think he saw me in drag. Of course, there were in Scranton. I'm some sort of star, and when I go to Scranton, it's like woo, and I'm on the front page, and it's great.
Yeah.
And it's very sweet. And so I visited, and I had a show. It was for the kickoff of Kinky Boots, and of course that's a story of dad and son and struggle there. And so they asked me to come perform, and it was at a Toyota dealership. Oh, fancy pants.
Hello.
Yes, I'm a star. So I came into town, and I was like, okay, I should go visit Mom's grave. And I had this like messaging from like somewhere, like, go see your father, he's coming soon. And I was like, he's coming soon. I'm like, why am I thinking this? You know, is this my past trying to be snake mouth nasty? And I go to visit him, and he's like, hey, how's it going? I see you have a show. Yep, I'm going to come to see the show. And I was like, what? No, Dad, I don't think that's necessary. And he's like, yeah. I said, I'm in drag. He's like, yeah, I saw it in the paper. And so he came to the show, and when he came around the corner and saw me, you know, in drag, he said, wow, Eddie, you're beautiful.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like, as time went on, and we would have conversations. I got the guts up. I said, I love you. He's like, I love you too. And it was very, very sincere. But I really think that it was it started with me being the truest, most genuine self of myself, and for him to realize I have no power over what he does and how.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So I think that the more that I was truly myself and not trying to anesthetize myself with alcohol or drugs, and to just really truly be me, he realized I do love him, and you know what? I love him exactly the way he is.
It's like I'm on this ride join if you want. You
Right.
you can choose to be a part of my life or not. And it sounds like it's like, well, this is the truest form.
Right.
I love him. I want to be there.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of this as long as I can, which is great.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think the stories of getting acceptance from your parents is very important in many ways. And I think that in terms of leadership, it just shows that you have to own your side of the street. You have to own who you are and the path you're on, and understand that parents aren't almighty gods, that they are human too and make mistakes and are and in the most cases, or in some, at least the majority, trying to do their best.
Right. And it does take them longer sometimes to come around. So I think there's a certain exercise, and I'm sure you had that eventually, in patience. It's just like, it's going to take a little time.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes longer. And I think parents have regret about that, but that's just what happens sometimes.
Yeah.
It takes them time. It's not just like, woohoo, look at me. And, oh, great. Wonderful.
Exactly.
Bravo. We love it. Like, no, it's a big shock because, again, they're in that linear mindset of, oh, no, this was our plan for you. To your point about control, this was our plan for you. And now it's like, wait a minute, you're zigzagging all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember my parents were like, you're the third. You're Edward Paul Popel the third. You can't be gay. I'm like, what does that even mean? Yeah. Actually, I should be gay because that's really a cool name. It was interesting, but I do believe that we need to, as people who are, myself, an entertainer in the spotlight, have some followers, it's important to tell that story because so many people say, or those stories of my coming out and coming to my most genuine self, because yes, the entertainment industry and the news shows homosexuality and transgender and bisexuality, et cetera, as everybody's accepting. Well, you still have to go through and tell the story to your family and to yourself, and so these stories are important to share.
Absolutely. One thing I want to backtrack on is you mentioned snake mouth twice, and I think that can sometimes be that could be, it just causes more trouble. But it also is a great form of protection in a way. And I think, we touched on last week when we were just chatting, we talked about bullies in high school.
Right.
And I think that's where that probably served as protection.
Absolutely.
So maybe dive into that story a little bit that you told us last week with the bully in high school.
Well, I remember the first bullies were my grandfather and father, who called me a fairy. And I was like, okay, fairy, that's a Tinkerbell. Like, I don't know. They're kind of cool. Like, I didn't understand why that was an insult. Or I remember early on my grandfather on my mother's side saying, we want to make sure that Eddie stops giving us a kiss goodbye because that's for girls. He needs to shake hands. Boys don't kiss. And I was like, but I love you. I'm just trying to give you a kiss goodbye. So that's where it started to begin. In my mind, the bullying began. And then I was being myself in middle school, high school, and suddenly I was called a fag, a sissy, and I wasn't sure of who I was in the first place. But it seemed as though everybody else had it defined for me already. And my home life was snake mouth to defend myself, but also physical, And so I had to control myself physically and not attack everyone just because they had to call me a name. And so, yes, I started to snap back. And in order to kind of protect myself and not get invited to another fight outside out in the field after school or whatever, I began to be saucy pants, snake mouth. And people would say as I got older, well, you're intimidating, or you put up such a wall. And I felt as though I had to have that protection of myself because I didn't know what I was going to walk into. And now here I am sitting here doing a podcast in half drag with painted toenails, Birkenstocks, a wig, and lipstick. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
People will ask me, well, now, where do you find shoes? At the shoe store.
Yeah.
Where do you buy a bra? Where you do. Maybe not. I buy mine at Walmart because I only wear one for years. But the point is, I used to have to hide in so many different ways. And now if you just boldly go into the store and do whatever it is that, and people are less likely to attack when they see the insecurity, when they see the uncertainty. For whatever reason, that's where a bully thinks they can come in because they have some insecurity or uncertainty. So they can see that weakness and they want to attack.
Right.
And so I'm not saying that every day is a confident, strong day, but for the most part, the more settled I am with myself, the easier it is to encounter any of those situations.
Yeah, and currently, you don't encounter a lot of bullies now. I mean, your social media is so positive, so warm, and you get a few outliers, but I think that confidence that you have shines through, and I think that's why you have 225,000 followers. And that's just Instagram, not everything else. And you've created this almost like a third space of just a place where people can come and talk with you and commune with you.
Well, thank you. I take a lot of pride in my social media, Insta Snatch, Twatter, Faceplace, all of it. And now the kids are on TikTok, which I don't know how the hell they're talking to clocks in the kitchen, but I am going to get there.
Yeah.
There's a joke in that there somewhere, Todd. That's why
With
I looked
the TikTok,
at you.
yeah.
The TikTok.
You got to rename that. That's got to be renamed.
Exactly. So I find, again, back to the world that we're living in right now, what is my circle of influence? And if I can post positivity and share my journey, that might not, I may have 200 or whatever on Instagram, but whoever sees that and that I engage with, if that helps them and then it can potentially influence their circle, that's the greatest gift of really what I'm doing. I do encounter negativity. I think obviously everyone does, no matter how many followers you have and no matter what your race, your gender. I mean, some have significantly far more, obviously, are black and trans individuals in the gay community, but in all really communities. But I will say that when I do get hate, my mother used to say to me, Eddie, when those boys bully you at school, compliment them. Say something like, I like your blouse. And she literally said that to me. And so me, mom lover, went to school, and this boy, football guy, has a jersey on. It's Spirit Week. And I'm like, he said fag. And I'm like, well, I like your blouse. Well, everyone laughed. Because what's a blouse, first of all?
Right.
And secondly, it's this football jersey. So that was the first time I realized there's some laughter in when that insult comes to you. You can kind of make light of it. And if you kill them with kindness, it diffuses the situation. So when I do get stuff, like last night, Mr. Davis, my husband, Steve, said, somebody said on your TikTok that you didn't know the words to a lip sync and that you should rehearse more, and they went off on you. Oh. And he said, I started to write something nasty. And then he said, that's not what Mrs. Kasha Davis did. And he said, I wrote, just so you know, thank you so much. I'll work on that or whatever. And exactly. I was like, who cares? I probably didn't know the freaking words.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, what's the difference? And if you feel as though that's going to make you feel better to call me out on that, well, then you go right ahead,
Yeah.
But I've had my share. People tell me to, it seems like the latest and greatest thing for kids behind a keyboard is to tell you to go and die.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
It is so
I
sweet.
call them the telephone tough guys.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what is it?
You can't see them.
Keyboard warriors.
Keyboard warriors. Yeah.
And honestly, it's in many cases there are death threats to different people, of course. But some of that is just like, okay, it's this whole. What are they doing now? Where they're canceling people?
Oh yeah.
That's big.
That's very big.
Yeah.
And so all of these things where you have to go in and defend yourself, and I don't necessarily think how should I say? I think it's not always a death threat is my point. It's some trend. And how I went back with it, I was like, yes, Mr. Davis and I will actually die, and probably before you. And you know that I'm giving it back to you when I say, yes, dear, or yes, honey.
Yeah. Honey. Right. That's the dig right there.
There's the dig.
Yeah.
So, and again, there's no point in arguing back and forth with that person for whatever reason. And then they get engagement with you. And then they're suddenly saying, I really do like your whatever, your
you don't
song.
engage it. Yeah. Never engage it.
I engage. Well, that's what social media is about, engagement. So you engage in a positive way.
Right. And positive, great. Yeah.
So that's how I've at least combated it. But again, as you mentioned, I don't get as much as others.
Yeah. So international tours, covers of New York Magazine, Drag Story Hour, tours that you've taken with some of your fellow sisters. When you broke out of this linear path, when you had the divorce and you're trying to sort things out for yourself and you're making yourself better, how did you start? I know people would want to hear just about how did you start building again? Because that's the thing. People feel like they're just on this one path, and then things happen. Then it's like, oh, I didn't do well in school, so I'm not going to be successful. Or, I should have started this when I was 19. It's too late now. And you went through all this, and look what you've built. So I think people want to hear, how did you build this?
Well,
even some
I'm
key
trying
ingredients.
I'm trying to think of. Thank you for saying that. And it's been an interesting journey. I am very proud to say that there's a documentary coming out about my journey.
Awesome.
And it's called Workhorse Queen.
Oh my
God.
God.
And that documentary, when I watched it, I was so very proud because I thought to myself, there was a period of time from when I divorced until meeting Steven, my husband, where there was this gap of just high levels of drinking and self-doubt and just, what am I doing with my life? And I went to school for theater, and I'm doing what my parents had said, and I'm in business, but I enjoyed that because there was a leadership role there. And it was just, I was enjoying what I was doing, but I wasn't following exactly what I loved. And time went on. I met Steve, and we started to build a life. And it really comes back to, there's a team there. Steve and I have truly, he's been such a support. He's just as much a part of Mrs. Kasha Davis as anything else. So it's Mr. and Mrs. Davis. And so there's the support, there's the teamwork, but then I needed to put aside what I was doing in terms of alcohol and Xanax I was quieting the anxiety with those substances. And when I did that, and when that became something that was put to the side, I was able to really walk through the shit, walk through the tough stuff to clear the path, and kind of listen to what it is that I want to do, and what is the real purpose of being Mrs. Kasha Davis. Am I just lip syncing and dancing around on a stage, or is there a message? And I gravitated towards performers that had a message, that were helping others, and truly in this time frame of since March, when the calendars were cleared and I was able to look at well, okay, now what? It comes back to the title of the documentary, Workhorse Queen. I didn't do well on RuPaul's Drag Race. I came in 11th or whatever. I don't know. I was on 8 episodes or something to that effect. And I was considered, basic and just okay. But I left my career of 18 years to finally follow what I loved.
Correct.
And so everything started to crash in terms of wow, I don't have a lot of work. What am I going to do? And I started to just look in the mirror and say, well, you're going to have to create it. And so why I'm saying things in quarantine have been, and since March, is there's no one knocking at the door asking me, to perform somewhere. I'm creating stuff on social media.
Oh, you sure are.
And so that's what I believe is the message, is that if you want something in your life, then create it.
Right. And you're doing it, and I have to commend you on the way you've done it is fantastic. You really pivoted well when the quarantine started and got right into the cameos, and you did your own show. And one thing I want to point out, and I know George is going to point out a couple other things, but something that I really enjoy is your Mondays with MKD. I think those are fantastic. And anybody listening, look for them. They're just on YouTube or on your social media?
They're on all social media. Well, all, meaning Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Okay. What led you into doing Mondays with MKD?
Well, it started with Storytime, which is my greatest passion, to work with kids. Then, and to provide something I didn't have, which was an example of someone living a happy, healthy life, expressing themselves, their truest, genuine self. Then, it was like, as mentioned, cameos and other performances. I was like, okay, those are fun. But then I started to think to myself, oh my gosh, a lot of these drag queens do makeup tutorials where they show you how to put on their makeup. And I was like, well, how can I take a twist on that? Well, let me show you how to remove the makeup because I'm very proud of the makeup wipes I use. Yeah. They're really easy to take the makeup off.
You always highlight them too. You hold them right up to the camera.
Yeah. But more than that, I was like, I want to expose exactly. I believe in sharing the journey and showing the wrinkles and showing, without the light, the great lighting and everything, and exactly who you are. And the Monday motivations, the Mondays with MKD just came from like, well, people seem to be having a very difficult time with anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol use. And that is something that I can relate to. How can I just share what's been working for me? It doesn't mean I'm an expert. It doesn't mean I know that this works. But again, it's a story of this is an idea, and this is something that's been working for me. And so that started to resonate with people. And again, the key, I believe, on social media is to tell the truth.
Yeah.
This is who I am.
Yeah.
A lot of people gravitate towards the other stuff, and that's fine too. There's a space for all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the key here too is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you approach these different activities on social media, I don't think you're going into it with like, oh, I'm going to get so many followers to this. You're doing it with a purpose. Whereas I think there are a lot of people, and I'm sure you'd agree, that there are a lot of people that go in to social media as a function, like, oh, look at me in this bikini, or look what I have and look what you don't, and look at the great food I'm going to eat and you're not eating it, or look at the island I flew all my friends to, and but I quarantined them for 2 weeks, so it's okay.
Right.
It's like, it's more of a function, like, oh, this will get things going. Whereas you're going in with a purpose, like, whether it's one person or 1,000 people that watch me, I'm still going to do it and give it a shot.
Yes. And I am absolutely just as addicted as the next person to how many followers do I have? How many people like that? But if you take that and put that aside and tell the truth, I can never predict which one's going to really take off, what's going to resonate with people. I don't know. If I'm being honest, it seems to resonate. Somebody shares it and maybe it gets more likes than another one. The one that I think is everyone's going to love this one. 200 likes or whatever. But again, that even doesn't matter, because I was told at one point it doesn't matter how many likes or follows you have. It's to get those likes to love you. Because if they do, they will then share your story, your journey with others. Like anything else in the world, if we really love something, we're the best salesperson for it, whatever it is. This is the best, clothing line. This is the best person, whatever the case may be. And you're selling that because you love it. But I laugh because sometimes people think like, oh, it must be fun to just get dressed up and just do what you do. It's just have such a good time.
So easy.
I'm like, okay, it's not, it is easy in a way, right? But it's work. It's work. There's thought put into it. There's a process. There's some time where I have to sit and really think about what it is that I want to say and how I want to say it. And then there are times when I'm like, I don't want to do it today. Like any other job, right? Yeah. I don't want it. And then I get a message from a parent who said their child is the most calm. They've never seen their child so calm and mesmerized as when they watch Storytime.
That's got to feel
every
good.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Or you helped me so much to realize that I might not be on the journey of recovery, but you're making some points where I can look at myself and think maybe I have a problem with drinking or whatever. I'm like, there's no better payment than that.
Yeah.
There's no better paycheck than that. And if I
That's the purpose.
right. And if I look back, and I could almost get emotional thinking about it, and I do get emotional thinking about it. When I think about the greatest anxieties I had, or the times when I was most deep into the bottle of gin or whatever, I was so scared that I wasn't doing what I loved, and I wasn't going to leave something behind. I was like, oh, you got these drunken journals you're leaving behind, and these photos of yourself in New Orleans with your friends, drunk, having a good time, and you've got this, but what are you really leaving behind? And I probably started to see that with my mom passing, and thinking to myself, like, what is the legacy? I mean, it doesn't have to be historical.
No.
Just what are you and so now I'm at a point where I can say that as I turn 50, it's like if I walk out of here and get run over, which will be quite a story with the way I look right now.
Yeah.
In the papers.
I take pictures.
Yeah, you'd be the one.
We'd be all over it.
You'd be the one running me over. No, but if that happens, I can say that people will remember some good things that are put out there on social media, or that are, and that's what I believe. And it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be an entertainer. You in any walk of life is like, what is it that we leave?
We are so aligned on that. We are so in sync, because I've imparted this hopefully on a lot of my former employees, where it's like, it's not about the statue or the book or the movie. It's literally that feeling, memory, or moment that you're leaving behind with people. Like my nephews, they're always going to say, yeah, oh, we loved him. He was kind of crazy. And they're not going to have a book written by me or anything like that. They might have some drawings, but it's really about how they conduct themselves. It's maybe I'm a part of their character, and if I can be a part of someone's character, what a legacy! And I think that's exactly what you are doing now.
Well, yes,
which is really
absolutely.
big.
Yeah,
and to me, it's the most important thing.
It is, and because we're all going to go.
Yeah, we are.
We sure are.
Yep. I have a question. And I'm not just saying this because I'm bragging in any way, but I've never had a sip of alcohol in my life.
Show off.
Yeah.
Right.
God,
Yeah.
get out of
Okay.
here.
Weirdo.
Son of a bitch.
Weirdo.
Judger. Oh, I
So-
can hear
no,
look at that gavel.
I'm just curious.
We're being bullies.
Yeah,
Bullies.
I'm just curious. And Scott, you might be able to speak on this too, because Scott also, he stopped drinking as well. What was rock bottom for you?
Ugh. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
I mean, it was my third DUI. As I mentioned, I have very passionate about. One of the main reasons why it was difficult for me to come out is that I didn't see and I didn't know that you can have kids as a gay person. I mean, that wasn't shown back in the day. I mean, obviously, marriage equality didn't happen until most recently either, and so that path was not clear for me, and so ultimately, the biggest dream was for me to have children. Mm-hmm. I have two beautiful daughters that came into my life because of Steve. And then on my third DUI, I was driving home at noon, swerving from children.
Wow.
And so the next morning when I was told that I did that, because I don't remember, blackout, I literally got on my knees and looked out the window and said, please, dear God, help me to stop.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to drink again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who that was. That is not me. I am not going to let that be my legacy.
That's right.
What do I need to do? I will do anything. I will give up Steve. I will give up the girls. I will give up my house. I will give up the career. I will do anything. Anything. And it was so sincere. It was so honest. No, I didn't see a bright light. No messages of rainbows came from the heavens, but I did look out that window and the world for a moment looked a little bit different because I asked for help of the universe or whatever you believe in.
You put it out there.
I put it out there and I owned it. It was my problem. It wasn't Steve's. It wasn't my father's. The way we were brought, any of those things that I looked at in my life of reasons why I drank, there was nobody else's fault but my own. And I owned it. And I went through the process of the third DUI and did the different things. And I'm actually very grateful for the process because I learned a lot. And I was without a license for about 4 years. And you're humbled in asking for rides for everything from the grocery store to a doctor's appointment to whatever. then I went into rehab, and I also went into the recovery program of AA, and I learned, and I really was able to take all the different self-help books that I had learned, and then I started to have the real life stuff, and then start to take a look at why I was abusing that antidepressant. It was taking me away from dealing with the stuff I had to walk through.
Was it tough? And I know from the world of comedy, I see, people are just, you're given drinks, people buy you drinks, the club will give you drinks. And it's got to be similar in the world of drag where people will offer you drinks, want to buy you drinks. Was that tough coming back into the world after you saw that so-called light? Or
for me, no. Yeah. I made a decision early on with my counselors. Well, no, I said to my counselors, like, I'm not going to just go to Denny's. I'm going to go to a restaurant that has a bar, and that's the path I want.
Good.
Right.
I'm not going on the path where I have to hide, but I do have the tools to know when I need to walk away from a certain situation and where some places I do not belong. I have learned what those tools are, and I've communicated them with my husband so that he understands there are certain things and keywords that mean I need to leave.
Right.
But when I find, again, almost like the negative comments when, people who drink, they're not really that concerned about what you're drinking. They just want to make sure that they are big drinkers. They're like, everybody's having a good time and they don't want to get zeroed in on for their drinking. So they're like, wow, why aren't you drinking?
Yeah.
And I would say rehab frowns upon it, or I would just blatantly snake mouth, put something out there that's like, stop the conversation. We're not talking about this anymore, you know? And I had a catchphrase that made me very popular, I'm asked to say it all the time, is there's always time for a cocktail.
Yeah.
And so now I just added to that I was drinking so much I was allergic to alcohol. Every time I drank, I broke out in handcuffs. And that's it.
Yep.
End of conversation. We don't need to talk about this anymore. She had a problem with alcohol. She was arrested. We don't need to hold the whole story. The whole story. End of conversation. So.
Yeah. Good.
Excuse me. So.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't. When I go to work now, I realize, because Steve would say to me, he's like, well, I don't understand why the drag queens are getting so drunk while they're performing. It's work. I'm like, have you ever been backstage? It's not just alcohol that's going on. It's drugs, it's alcohol, stimulants, whatever, blah, blah. And I thought that was kind of what I liked about it. And it would loosen me up to be on stage. Well, yeah, sometimes it was funny and sometimes it was a complete train wreck. But now it's like, I don't have to have that to go to work. Yeah. And my husband still drinks. I do not have a problem with people drinking. I just know that it's something that it's like I'm allergic to it.
You have, and what I love what you said just a moment ago. What you have is you have conviction. You're just like, you looked out the window. Something was already inside. I call it the recessive gene. Everybody has these recessive genes, and this recessive gene finally opened up in you because it sensed that, oh boy, this is the time. And that recessive gene just opened and was like, okay, we're not doing this anymore. We're taking a different path. And you did it with conviction, and you didn't make it an issue about like, no, I'm not going to be going to Denny's or the Veggie Grill. I'm going to go to the restaurants that everybody else goes to and that I used to go to, but this portion of it isn't for me anymore. Right. And I just think your conviction, that's something that I think a lot of people don't give themselves credit for. I think if more people recognize that, maybe it would be helpful to them too, because you just have conviction. You're like, yep, this is what happened. This is what I'm not doing anymore. This is awoken in me, and I'm still going to live my life, but it's going to be lived differently.
Right. Well, and there are I need lots of help in order to get there. So there are different people that I, work with, and counselors, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's as you know, it's a one day at a time type of conviction.
Yeah. And when you break out of this linear path and what you're doing and all the things that come with it, I think in the end, it comes to the team that you build around you. And it always starts with one person, and you kind of build that team around you. And that's that team that's going to be supportive. They're going to call you out when you need to be called out. They're going to be there at 3 a.m,
Absolutely.
And that's where it starts.
Yeah. And I mean, people have, I think just in general, humans have addictions to many things. You know,
For
it doesn't
sure.
have to be, you know, obviously it could be as healthy as exercise, and it could be detrimental as, you know, meth.
Yeah.
Okay. So the spectrum, you know, but we can look at ourselves and say, you know, wow, you know, what is it that I'm using this for? Whatever, insert whatever. And what am I not walking through? What am I not dealing with? What am I not focusing on? And that takes time. It might not, just because you stop drinking doesn't mean something, you know, suddenly everything is wonderful.
Right.
I mean, it takes time and progress and patience, but also determination. It just, so I'm new to sobriety. I'm only like 5 years sober, and I'm only as sober as I am from the moment I wake up to the end of the day. So, you know, I can easily distract myself with shopping or food or exercise, etc. Porn, of course, you had to bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, our video will be released soon, Todd. Calm down.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
I've got a
People will love it. It'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be a Fridays with MKD.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just before the weekend.
Evenings with MKD.
Right. Well, this has been fantastic.
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate you coming on for a first episode. I know how that can be sometimes. Like, who the hell is this person? What am I doing?
No, I think it's fantastic. I know we had our conversations about, like, you know, tell me your journey and what's it going to be about. But I knew I was going to do it no matter what. I mean, I have a friendship with Todd, and I was like, well, if this is Todd's friend, I'm sure I'm going to like him too.
Yep.
And it's going to be great.
Same with me.
Yeah.
Todd's the great connector here.
That's me.
Yeah, that's his job.
The old linchpin. There I am.
Absolutely.
Old is right.
When can we expect the Workhorse Queen documentary?
Oh, yeah.
Great question. So I don't know a lot about how documentaries and films work, but it's in the process now of being the final edits. I did see a rough cut, and it's interesting to watch about your life. But they are selling it and sending it to documentary, or what's it called, film festivals.
Fantastic.
And Netflix now.
Okay.
And different things like that, streaming platforms. And a little secret I'll tell you that I haven't told anybody else is that
an exclusive.
Exclusive breaking.
I love it. First episode, exclusive.
Yeah, here we go.
Well, Mr. Davis and I we're being courted for a new television show that's going to be something around the idea of So I Married a Drag Queen is the potential.
Oh my God.
I had a feeling, and I'm going to tell you because of those videos you guys post lately.
Well, we've been posting Life with
fantastic.
the Day. Thank you.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, of course, it's one of these things where they're putting together the sizzle reel for networks, and there are multiple different couples, and it's just to show the world that this is possible. Because, you know, not only does the you know, people wonder, like, you know, how what is the life like of a drag queen, but then how do you even be in a relationship with a drag queen?
Yeah.
And there are people in the gay community who are like, ew, you know, I don't want to date a drag queen. So it's you know, smashing those preconceived notions of what it's like, and we're telling our stories. And they told us that we're the pillars of the so
means
that
you're old.
means we're old. I was like, Steven, we're the old ones.
You turn
And he's
into
like,
a
"That's
pillar."
good." He's like, that's good. The old ones, they don't really, people are just like, oh, that's nice, Mr. and Mrs.
They're the cool, no, but they're
nice.
the cool ones too. They're the cool
No,
ones too.
We are definitely, well, and knowing who the other ones they're looking at, I was like, okay, we are definitely not the cool ones. But, you know, we've got an interesting story. And I have to say that is just left field. I wouldn't have expected that, and I hope that really comes to fruition.
Oh, it definitely will. Are you kidding?
For sure. So
That'd
do
be
we.
great.
I mean, we would love to have you back, not just for Workhorse Queen documentary, but if that goes through, then we got to have the Mister in here
Well, there's
too.
a seat
Yeah,
here
yeah.
That's
for it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We would love
he's the
to have
best.
that
He's
going
so
on.
funny. Just he's so dry. His wit is great. It's so funny.
he doesn't think he's funny. I'm like, Steven,
Oh, he's
you
hilarious.
are so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very, very funny. And
love
before we
it.
go, people, if you haven't seen Kasha Davis perform, once life is back to good, go see her perform. She's amazing. And I know she said to me before that, she's learned so much from me about comedy. I also have learned a lot from you and working with the other queens that I've had the pleasure of hosting many of your shows. That not only did I
with and without a dress.
Well, that too. That was you say that funny, like you're joking, but that was a time I had to get on stage with two things. A, dressed as a woman, and the first time I ever performed without my glasses. If you know anything about me, I see nothing without my glasses. To get on stage, try and do stand-up comedy dressed as a woman and not be able to see a thing in front of you, that was a challenge. And it also, at that point, it really taught me something about stage presence. Not that I had stage presence as it was up to that point, but I really learned something. And from all those shows, I always learned working with you, Darian, Ambrosia, Aggie, whoever I was on stage with, I always picked up something about stage presence. And if you've never seen Kasha Davis, please do yourself a favor, either see her in person or go online and find something and follow her on all her social medias.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Mondays with MKD, Storytime Wednesdays.
Yeah. What else is there?
Yeah, anything else before we go?
No.
Evenings with Todd.
Evenings with Todd. The Life with the Davises that we do comes out on Thursdays.
On Thursdays, Life with the Davises.
So. It's like great. I said, well, why not make our social media like its own little streaming platform?
Well, it's your own little channel.
Right.
For great, sure.
Yeah.
And it has gotten me other gigs, in this crazy time. So, why not? And really, what else am I going to do? Lord & Taylor's closing. If anybody's from Rochester, that is like the only like fancy store. There's that other one.
B. Foreman?
I don't know what.
Remember B. Foreman? They went.
Yeah. I don't know what to do.
I don't know why that really hit me.
But it's close. It's true. I can't. I'm so depressed. And if you go to the Eastview Mall, you're like, okay, there's 2 stores left. So it's the world isn't going to the shitter. It's just all going online. So I thought, well, then I have to have my own channel.
Yeah, and you did it. You did it right.
Create your own little world.
You did a great job.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, the Lord Taylor thing's still going.
I know. I just got the credit card. What am I going to do?
But again, we are so appreciative, and thank you for being here today. Thank you for being so open, so real, and I know that people listening are going to take a lot from this today. We really appreciate it, and we can't wait to have you back.
Well, thank you for having me.
And we will have you back, for sure.
And the coffee was delicious.
Love it.
Oh. Snake mouth. I'm a snake.
I know. I was waiting for it. I love it. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thanks, everybody, for tuning into this first episode. You can download the podcast every Thursday morning starting at 10 a.m. on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. I hope you got a lot out of our guest today, Mrs. Kasha Davis. The stories here, I think, illustrate that no matter what you're going through in your life, you do not have to follow a linear path. Just because, you think you should be doing one thing and then something happens and throws you off kilter, there's always a chance to rebound and build something great. And I think what Mrs. Kasha Davis has done is gone through a lot in life and was able to pivot or change, whatever word you want to use, at a later time in his life, and build something, not just a business, but build a family and a team and a great support network, and ended up on the successful side of life. So please make sure that no matter what you're going through, just realize that, life is not a linear path. Things change all the time. And whether you decide to build a business at 19 or start a family at 55 or become an actor at 70, that's able to happen. And we're going to dive into a lot more of that as the episodes continue. So we hope you stay with us. And I just want to thank my friend Todd for joining us today and on future episodes. And to our producer, Scott. Did a great job, and that's we're taping out of Bushnell's Basin in Rochester, New York, with Rockvox. It's a fabulous studio, And if you have any needs around podcasts or videos or editing, Scott is the guy to talk to.